Good afternoon, math people. Today is Tuesday, April 28th. This is the first day of my math office hours. Don't forget that I'm going to have those on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 1 to 3. You can email me. I'm going to do my videos during that time. I'm going to be checking Alex. I may make a few phone calls during that time. So anything that you need is going to be during that time. I'm going to start just posting videos on those days. So you will only see videos on those days from now on, just on those. So today what we're going to do is we're going to pick up where we left off last week, identifying angles when you have parallel lines and transversals. And we know that these two lines right here are parallel. They're going to maintain an equidistance from each other. They're never going to get any closer or further away. This line right here that intersects both of them is called a transversal. And when it intersects them, it creates angles. And we talked about how those angles had a relationship to each other and different angles related in different ways. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to identify those relationships. So right here with this one, if you look at X and Y, one of the things that you can see is that they are both on top of their parallel line, and they are both to the right side of that transversal. So they're in the same location. They're on top and they're to the right. And if they're in the same location, those are called corresponding. So those are corresponding angles. Okay? And we talked about why those were important or what we use those for. And you can see that these are both acute angles, meaning they measure less than 90 degrees. And last time we used our patty paper and we proved this, but corresponding angles are always going to be congruent. Whatever the measure of y is, that's going to be our measure of x. And that's going to be important tomorrow in the lesson that we do, is the fact that those two are congruent. Okay? Let's take a look at number 2. In number 2, we have x and y. Y is on top of its parallel line, X is on the bottom, and they are on opposite sides of that transversal. So if you look, they're both outside those parallel lines and they're on opposite sides. And we talked about how outside meant exterior. Like if you're painting the outside of your house, you're going to use an exterior paint. And because they flip-flop from one side of the line to the other, one side of that transversal to the other, those are alternate. And so the type of angle that these are is they are alternate exterior angles. Okay? And the reason that they are important, or what we're going to use them for, you can look and you can see that they are both obtuse. They measure more than 90 but less than 180. And they, in fact, are congruent. And we proved that last week with our patty paper. Okay? Taking a look. Oh, my goodness gracious. If we take a look at number 3, you have y and x. They're on the same side of that transversal. They are both underneath their parallel line, and so we've seen that before. They're in the same location on on the same side of, on different parallel lines. So these are corresponding. So these are corresponding angles. Okay? So then for the next one, we have 2 angles. They're both inside. They're both on the same side of that transversal. Inside means interior. Like if you were going to paint your bedroom, you would use an interior paint, because I know a lot of people are painting right now. And so these are same side interior angles. Okay? And we can tell that They are not the same angle. This is definitely an acute angle. This one is an obtuse. And we proved the other day using our patty paper that if you took Y and you laid it side by side, sorry, my electricity went off for a second. The weather's getting bad. If you laid it side by side, they would form a straight line. So they are supplementary. If you add them together, their measurements would give you 180. Okay? So let's go to number 5. On number 5, your angles are inside your parallel lines, but this time they're on opposite sides of your transversal. And so inside means interior, and we already said that opposite sides you alternate, like you go from one side to another, you alternate. And so this would be alternate interior angles. We had those alternate exterior, and now we're going to have alternate interior angles. Okay? And these we proved the other day. We can look, and you can barely tell, but it's a little bit obtuse. They almost look 90 degree, but they are a little bit obtuse. And if we use that patty paper we had and we put that patty paper, this would be congruent. They would be the same measure. Okay? Going to take a look over here at number 6. And for number 6, they're on the outside of the parallel lines. They are on opposite sides of your transversal. So opposite sides mean they're alternate. Outside means they're exterior. So alternate, exterior right here, angles. And they're both acute. Even though they kind of look 90 degree, they're still acute. And what that equals is, that means that they are going to be congruent. They're going to have that same measure. Okay? All right. Let's take a look at our next one. For number 7, they try to mess you up because they throw this middle line in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to act like that one doesn't even exist. We're just going to kind of scratch it out. And we're just going to look at these 2 angles. And they also throw this other transversal. We're going to scratch that one out. So we're only looking at this. And if we look at this, we can see there's our 2 parallel lines. Here's our transversal. X and Y are on the inside. And they're on alternate sides. They're on opposite sides. So even though they put all that other stuff, we're only looking at those 2 parallel lines and that 1 transversal. So these were alternate interior also. And that means that they would be congruent. They would have that same measurement. Okay. And then right here, I kind of changed this one up because they didn't have an example like this one. If you have a line and you have a transversal and you have angles that are across from each other at that intersection right there, at where those 2 lines intersect, these are called vertical angles. And because they're vertically across from each other. And so, kind of like, remember we talked about Lewis and Mike Willis Ford are kind of vertically across from each other at the red light. And so that would be congruent. Y and X would have the same measurement if we put them together. Okay? Alrighty. And that is where we're going to stop today. Tomorrow, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking some of this information, knowing what kind of angles they are, knowing whether they're congruent or they're supplementary or what it is that they are, and we are going to solve for angle measurements. What happens when you're missing an angle measurement? Okay, I hope you have a great day. The weather's getting kind of bad. I thought you were fixing to get to see my cat because he's walking all over the place. Miss y'all. I'll see y'all back here tomorrow. Y'all have a great afternoon.